And so as I looked into that mirror, it really boiled down to one pivotal moment in my life where it was a point of not wanting to be alive anymore. And that was a hard thing and a harsh reality to face, but I needed to face it. And I needed to understand that if I continue the same path that I'm on right now, in 5 years, where does this lead me? And if my vision of wanting to guide and lead and have a family was apparent right now, okay, well, these are not the things that I want to show my child. These are not the things that I want to lead my family in.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Please do me a favor, guys out there, whilst I get you fresh in this interview. Go down there, press the like and subscribe button, and tell your friends about this show, because we have got so many beautiful guests like today. I can't wait to have John Daniel on my show here. John is a man who has learned how to go out there and live his life to the fullest, how to rise from adversity, how to harness resilience and faith and turn it into triumph. It is a beautiful approach that he uses as a holistic way of getting us back to align us with our bodies and actually just influence the deep, dark bits of our brain and actually change our habits in such a way that we turn out in the best human possible form. I love it. So thank you very much, John, for coming onto my show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited for a juicy conversation.
Wow. So nowadays you're there in order to empower people. In order to do so, typically there is a story behind that, because we don't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I know what I do. I'm gonna empower people." No, you typically end up in that story because there has been some darkness in your life, and there has been some insights that you had gained the hard way. You able to share a bit of that?
Most definitely. It all starts with one word that I constantly ask myself every day, and that's, how can I be the boss of my life? And being the boss of my life looked a little bit different than the traditional upbringing. My story really started with adversity. It's always been the first chapter. What I realized growing up with a father that was in and out of my life till the age of about 8 years old, I battled with a lot of things in terms of what I was watching and what I was seeing, inconsistency with a parental figure. And as a child, it can be hard to wrap your head around what that means. And you battle with a lot of things in terms of, am I worthy of love? Am I worthy of these things? And constantly was asking myself that question throughout my childhood, when the last time I saw my father was 8 years old. And so luckily, my stepfather put me into sports because he knew that having a distraction, and a distraction that could actually propel me to a positive human being, was going to push me in the right direction, which is what I'm so grateful for every single day. But it still didn't actually cover the things that I was trying to distract myself by. And so there were all of these stories as I was going throughout my childhood that I would constantly ask myself, am I worthy of this success? Am I worthy of this trophy? Am I worthy to go to college and participate in college athletics? And so that has been a constant question that I ask myself, even to this day. And ultimately, what I've come to realize is that is going to be a constant question. But if I can do one thing today that actually starts to build that confidence and build that worthiness, I can actually start to feel true within myself. And that is ultimately what's led me to this point in helping others achieve that and start to water the seeds that lie deep within themselves.
You definitely found a root cause for what was going on in your life for later on, the behavioral changes, because those kind of early beliefs that are being established, they run rampant, and often enough we don't know about it. And I'm sure you didn't realize it then when you were 8 that that was happening in you, but still it drove you with regards to your relationships, with regards to everything else later in life. Can you identify that there were flow-on effects from that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for myself was that acceptance was just such a foreign concept to
Uh,
me. And being put into sports, it was allowing me to replace that with the acceptance that I was seeking in my biological father.
mm,
And I think that that came with its whole new wave of challenges because you can't do and compete in sports forever, right? Even if you go on to be a professional athlete, you can't have that be the sole being of what your identity is.
uh,
And
uh,
so, as I, yes, layered that on top, now my identity was wrapped around the college athlete or the competitive athlete. And
Absolutely.
so as I went on through life, that unwrapped a whole nother level of challenges within, because now that level of acceptance from the outer world, the exterior world, was not able to view me as that competitive athlete or John the wrestler anymore. And so stepping out into what I call the real world after college, it was a little bit of an identity crisis, I would say at the least.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And that theme is resonating through so many lives out there. For me, it was throwing myself into being a doctor and being getting the external validation from the letters behind my name and any publications and stuff like that. And then when I burned out in one certain field of medicine, and I had to give that field up, I was empty. Who are you? And I said, I'm a pain physician. Yeah, no, 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 Stefan, who are you? I just told you I'm a pain physician. That was my identity. Wow. And you're quite right. What about relationships? Often enough, when you go through a sort of bit of abandonment in your early life, you expect the same to happen, and the "am I worthy" often translates then into behavior that is either procrastination or, in fact, active distraction, subconscious distraction of relationships, because you expect to be left alone. You expect to be, uh, to not have a successful relationship. Did that happen to you too?
100% it did.
Mm.
And it still does in certain ways. I think that it's something that's a constant progression. And the only way that I was able to really take a step back and look at the things that needed to change was I had to look at the mirror. And I always use this analogy of when I look at the mirror, where are there places that are foggy? And so I had to go and clean certain parts of that mirror that were foggy. And in terms of relationships, who were the people that were the closest to me as I was battling with this identity crisis? At the time, I had a girlfriend. And
Uh,
so a lot of my projections and insecurities were then put onto her. You know, my parents, there was a lot of deep rooted rejection and resentment that I had towards my mom for taking me away from my biological father. And
uh,
so I started to drown all of those emotions, because when we label these things as bad emotions, we naturally just want to run from them. And so the more I tried to run from them and the more I tried to drown those things out, the more I was running away from that thing that I was trying to seek, which was internal peace. And so as I looked into that mirror, it really boiled down to one pivotal moment in my life where it was a point of not wanting to be alive anymore. And that was a hard thing and a harsh reality to face, but I needed to face it. And I needed to understand that if I continue the same path that I'm on right now, in 5 years, where does this lead me? And if my vision of wanting to guide and lead and have a family was apparent right now, okay, well, these are not the things that I want to show my child. These are not the things that I want to lead my family in. And that is what I think opened my eyes to all of the possibility and the closeness in relationships that I actually sought. But in order to change, things have to actually change. And so I did something that I didn't really know what change looked like. I started going on podcasts and I started listening to podcasts and I started listening to podcasts on how to rewire your mind. And one podcast led to the next. And I realized, you know, a consistency happened in a lot of these transformations and how to rewire your mind. And that is they sought help, they sought professional advice. And so, not knowing what that really meant, I called up a therapist and I said, hey, you know, I'm in a dark place right now. I don't know what's wrong with me. All of my relationships are failing. I'm not confident. I'm having an identity crisis. I'm struggling with alcoholism. I'm struggling with a cocaine addiction. What do I do right now at this rock bottom? And the first thing was just awareness. And that is one of the key things that I constantly preach about, because the more awareness we have around things, the more power we have over that and the less power it has over us.
Exactly. Oh, beautifully said. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And I love it that you sort of admitted to the to maybe not such great coping mechanisms. I mean, the cocaine is certainly quite good to lift heavier weights. If there's one addiction that is going, yeah. And if you look at pre-workouts and all the kind of stuff that people in the gym are sort of downing, yeah, right. 600 milligram of caffeine is certainly enough to get you wired. Oh dear. What did the alcohol do when you drank it? How did that make you feel?
Made me numb. It made
Nice.
me not allowing me to feel the emotions that I truly needed to feel in order to accept the person that I was and the circumstances and the things that I had seen growing up.
Mm,
And in the short term, it was amazing. It made me feel on top of the world. It
mm,
made me a lot more live. I was the life of the party. And so I was getting external validation when I
yeah,
would go to parties because I would be the life of the party and I would be that fun person. And so I
mm,
was subconsciously convincing myself that that was okay because other
absolutely.
people liked me when I was drinking alcohol, which
Mm,
again, that was just playing into this whole identity crisis and molding a different
mm,
identity that
mm,
wasn't true to who I was. And to be straightforward with you, I love it. I battle with that every single day. I battle with it in social situations when
mm,
everybody's drinking alcohol and everybody's having a great time. There is a
mm,
part of me that is naturally drawn to that.
mm,
And I think what I realized was the relationship that I had with it was unhealthy for the distraction that I was utilizing it for. And I'm not going to sit here and say that my relationship with that is the same as the person next to me.
mm.
But I do know that for myself, the way that it made me feel, it was drowning out the person that I was really made to be.
Beautifully said. Because if we try to escape our reality, and that's where alcohol is such a powerful thing. It is 100% agreed with every single word you're saying. And I very much feel like that as well. Um, Having said that, to accept or even to start off realize what is happening and then to accept that is one thing. To actually change that and put in different coping mechanism is a complete different thing. How did it change for you? What led to the transformation? What led you to the man who is nowadays accepting his emotions, warts and all, let it be positive, let it be negative? How did that journey start?
I had to go back to my core root of what built my confidence. By embracing my past, I
Mm,
understood that the seeds of confidence and high energy and self esteem came through being in a gym. It was a faint feeling because I was naturally pulled to drinking and pulled to the coping mechanisms, but it was still inside of me. And
nice,
I knew that. And so one day
nice.
at a time, one rep at a time, the gym naturally became a playground for self exploration. How hard can I push myself? How much stronger can I get? Then, after a few weeks of that consistency, something clicked. And I realized that this was a direct correlation to life and how I perceive and navigate through challenges that I face and all of the challenges that encompass life. And so months went by, and those months turned into years, and each workout brought new levels of self-discovery. And that negative feedback loop that I was constantly wrapped in, that held me captive, started to shift into positive self-talk and acknowledgement and understanding that my self-worth was actually increasing. So what I did is I had to understand, where did confidence build from the beginning? And that's the only thing that I had in my life at that point. So I went to the gym. That first step was just showing back up at the gym. And the farther I strayed away from the gym, and the farther that I do stray away from the gym, I noticed that I'm naturally pulled to those habitual coping mechanisms. And so if I can use that information and just know that that's what happens for myself, then I know how to pull myself out of those situations and how to rebuild that self-confidence within myself.
Nice. Nice. Having said that, I mean, there's more to that than just the physical exercise. If you think about it, the gym is for you kind of a place to reset. This is a place of safety, so to speak. This is a place to anchor yourself. This is a place full of triggers to trigger different coping mechanisms, to trigger action taken into the right direction. So there are a lot of things happening. It's not just throwing a few weights around. There is actually a multitude of things happening that you have harnessed in order to empower yourself and to move forward. And therefore, with every rep, you are registering a win. Do you nowadays accept and celebrate your wins? How were you in the past with let's say a new personal best? Was that something you just expected and then was going for the next one, or did you actually celebrate?
That's a great question. I think that that's evolved from the start, because I was very, very hard on myself at the beginning. And if I didn't hit a personal record, then it wasn't a win. Or if I didn't go for as long, then it wasn't a win.
Exactly.
And so once I understood that, I realized that in itself was a negative feedback loop. Even though I was in the gym doing the thing that I was supposed to do, since I was being so hard on myself, it was a dual-edged sword, right? And so I had to reframe what a win actually looked like. And what I started to benchmark this as was, am I doing the things that I don't want to do? And if the answer is yes, and it's moving me in the right direction, then that is a win. So it's not the amount of weight that I'm lifting. It's not how long I go, but did I show up today? And as long as I can check that box off, then I know that I am moving in the right direction.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, that's probably one of the nicest answers I've heard to that question. And that's because 80% of success is just showing up. And often enough, there are all these voices in your head that convince you, nah, you don't need to, nah, it's not. Or, no, it's so much more important to, I don't know, do social media or something like that, whatever it is. Well done. Interestingly enough, you came to this point in your life in your 30s, late 20s, 30s. Here I am at 57, only just cultivating that finally. So obviously I needed to have a 2x4 over my head many more times than you to come to that part of healing. Let's put it like that. Or to that part of creating a powerful habit. My to-do lists in the past, Superman on speed wouldn't have been able to just cover a fraction of my to-do list. Yet, for me, I put those to-do lists, and at the end of the day, I had maybe ticked off 1 or 2 or 3 things. See, I'm a failure. I'm a failure. Are you a failure? Is that a voice in your head?
Every single day. And I think that that's what goes back to the battling self-worthiness that I've dealt with since I was a child. That's something that I constantly have to remind myself and get validation within myself, not the external world. Am I doing the right thing for myself? And on paper, I may be, changing lives, or I may be going on podcasts like this, or I may be going to lift the weights and having 10% body fat and all of these things. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, if I'm not laying my head on the pillow and knowing that my internal self-worth is in alignment, then I'm missing the block there. So I think that I answer that question for myself every single day before I fall asleep is, did I do one thing for myself today that I know is moving the needle on that self-confidence? And a lot of the times I've realized that it's the conversations that I have with myself with no distraction around that allow me to really gain the clarity that I need.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice. How do you make room in your life for those conversations to occur?
Yeah, time is a very, very difficult thing, especially with the chaos of the world. And we have all of these goals and things that we want to achieve, and not enough hours in the day. With only 24 hours in a day, you really have to understand how we can prioritize and set boundaries. Those are the two things that I know for myself that allows me to create space to have those conversations that I need to have. So I can carve out necessary time of self-care, personal development, meditation. And so what starts my day every single morning is just 10 minutes after I wake up, I sit with my thoughts. And when I started this practice, I Googled, how do I meditate? And I thought that I was doing this wrong because my mind was always going in a million different directions right as I woke up. But the more I did it, the more I realized that that was the practice of meditation in itself. And the more I did it, the less judgment I had over myself of actually doing it. And then the more I did it, the more consistent I had clarity in my thoughts because of that quick 10 minutes in the morning. And so it really just boils down to, what are we making a priority in our lives right now? And how can we structure our day to have that 10 minutes in the morning to actually have the conversations with ourselves that we really need to have and get our thoughts in line?
Very beautiful. Exactly. I couldn't agree more with you. And meditation is basically a means of finding clarity. And it's not something where you try to seek wisdom from some dude sitting on the top of a mountain, but it is actually just being quiet, allowing your mind to do what it needs to do. And of course, it wanders. And of course, in my case, it often raises ideas left, right, and center. But it's okay to actually just sit there quietly and accept that there's an idea popping in, and you say hello to the idea, and then you just let it wander off. And you just don't need to be immediately get excited about it. So that is, again, these are lessons where we actually can learn so much from ourselves from within by getting to know us, by actually getting to know all those voices, all those feelings. Many of us are running away from them left, right, and center, try to numb us or distract us. And here you are actually allowing those feelings and allowing those thoughts to be present. And that's so beautiful. That's a huge, huge step forward. And you were saying 10 minutes, and you think, oh my God, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. Well, if you think about it, every single person in this world has got the same amount of seconds in a day. And the question is, could you just maybe spend 1% of your day doing something that maybe turns you into a better human? And most people would say 1%, yeah, probably I could do that. Well, 1% is about 15 minutes. So therefore, could you spend 15 minutes a day to actually actively turn yourself into a better human? And probably you will find those 15 minutes. So I love the boundaries and I love the priorities that you're setting with your clients. That's the key thing. And once you actually have accepted those things and start doing them, it becomes easier. You find ways of actually doing things quite nicely. You can do a lot of exercise and activity outside of the gym. If you say, well, I don't have an hour or 2 hours in the gym, sorry, I'm a busy um, person who runs 2 jobs to feed 3 children alone. But would you tell such a person who says, "Well, actually, I don't have time for that. I know it would be good for me. I know that, but right now I'm so run down, racket, full of stress. Don't know where the money is coming from. My relationship has just gone bust. My identity, I don't even know who I am." Where the hell do you start with that?
That is one of my favorite questions to get. And it's different for everyone. And yes, we all have 24 hours in a day, but we all have a different 24 hours in a day. And so learning how to set clear boundaries is going to look different for each person. But what I've come to realize for each one of my clients and even myself is learning to say no to activities and commitments that do not align with what your goals and your values are, then
Nice.
allows you to focus on what truly matters.
Nice.
And so by establishing these boundaries around your time and your resources, if that, you can create a supportive environment for one, because that supportive environment was also one of the key drivers of my growth, that it fosters growth and a growth mindset. But in essence, managing this time is just all about making deliberate choices and commitments that allow you to prioritize your health, your mental capacity, and your fitness. And one thing that you need to ask yourself is, how do I feel right now? And what has led me to this point? If something needs to change, then something has to change. And so a lot of the times we will get overwhelmed with all of the things in our lives that need to change. There may be 10 things on that list in the morning that we need to change that day. But what I've found to be the most success, to have the most success, is we constantly have to break those into bite-sized chunks. So one of the things that I do for all of my clients, because our brain can only wrap our heads around 2 habits each 60 days at a time. And so what I do is say, okay, what are 2 things that we can focus on for this next 60 days that we can build on top of this? One of my favorite books is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he goes into the analysis of understanding what are 2 habits that we can build every 60 days. And if you're constantly doing that over a year, think about how many compounding interest habits that has within your life. And so if we can just dial those 2 things in for the next 60 days, whether it's your mindfulness in the morning, whether it's maybe journaling on a piece of paper, maybe it's a 10-minute walk outside, just focusing on those 2 things, getting those 2 things down for 60 days, then you reflect on those things and really understand, how did that make me feel in the last 60 days? Well, guess what? Now you have an emotion behind what that's created, and we can now use that fuel for the future.
Nice, nice. Linking it with the emotion. But having said that, also actually doing it for 60 days, because we all know we have to move. We all know we have to eat healthy. Everyone knows that those key messages. And indeed, every 1st of January, I mean, everyone, good resolutions, yes, of course. And then 8 days later, yeah, I care about that, but 90% of the resolution has gone down the drain. And it is the actually keeping those good habits going consistently, like it or lump it. I call it the 5-minute gardener. If you imagine you go into your garden every day from now on for 5 minutes, never more, never less. After a week, you would see some changes because you have weeded here, there, planted something there, did something there. After a month, your family thinks, wow, okay, well, the garden looks nice. After 3 months, you've got bus tours coming along who are checking out your garden. So that is the power of compound interest, of doing small, manageable, bite-sized steps. I love it, your approach. And I love the 60 days, actually, because I certainly have many a times tried certain new habits and then didn't actually continue in the way I should have done. I somehow life got too busy and I stopped doing things too early before they really got ingrained, before they really got taken hold. It's like a new plant. It just needs to grow its roots first. And if you don't let the roots go down, the next bit of wind, just that's the end of it. Wow. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So in let's say the middle-aged person who hasn't done any sport, who is out of shape, who gets short of breath just walking up the stairs, one flight that is, who is unable to do anything and is now saying, okay, fine, let's go into the gym, but I don't know when. So, how do you actually get someone to change their attitude towards exercise, their attitude towards fitness? And these are all words that trigger different things, sometimes negative emotions, sometimes things. How do you go about that?
Yeah, of course. Well, we have to understand one main thing before the process ever begins. And that is going back to what I said about why I was changing. I was changing because I needed to create a person that my family could rely on in the future. And so we always start with the reason of why are we doing the thing that we're doing?
Mm.
Why do we want to lose 50 pounds?
Mm.
Why do we want to put on muscle? And the more we get clear on the reason of why we are doing that, then we can start to build on top. Because what happens is a lot of the times people just go to the gym to just lose the 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 pounds. But when it gets hard and it gets tough and we don't want to go to the gym, we just fall right off because our deep reason of why we're doing it is not strong enough. One of the things that you mentioned is that January 1st, everybody always has all of these major goals and intentions on going to the gym consistently. And the main reason why the majority of people fall off track is because consistency and motivation are two different things. They're motivated on January 1st. Well, what builds consistency is that deep-rooted purpose and that deep-rooted why. So the more deep we can get on that purpose and that meaning of why we're actually going to the gym, that is what's going to push us through that consistency and to be consistent. Now, after we've got that clear vision of what the reason why we're doing this, then we can start to understand, okay, so I'm not going to treat somebody that's been sedentary for 5 years. I'm not going to tell them to go to the gym every single day for 2 hours a day and they're going to only eat chicken and rice because, quite frankly, that's just going to end up them hating their life. And I don't even like that. And so the biggest thing is we have to understand what are the things that we actually like. Because if our goal is sustainable, holistic health, well, we have to do something that we enjoy doing. And so that's going to look different from person to person. Some people may like lifting weights. Great. Let's start with one day out of the week. We go into the gym and we lift weights for 20 minutes. Maybe some people like walking outside in nature. Great. Well, we start with one day of going outside and walking outside for 20 minutes in nature. So it really just depends on what you actually are called to do to get that movement started. And from there, it's just a mindfulness practice and awareness around what can keep us consistent in that progress.
Beautiful, beautiful. And indeed, suddenly you change something that is a chore or something that has a lot of negative connotations, like going to the gym, like for someone who is out of shape, who is who's, let's say, obese or morbidly obese, to now walk in there where there's spandex and lycra and the beautiful people doing beautiful manly and femalely things. Well, that can be quite daunting. By you, however, changing things into experiences that are not painful, but are actually giving afterwards a sense of satisfaction, a sense of maybe serenity, because often enough people out there who are in the darkness, who are in the dumps, there is a lot of anxiety there. And suddenly, I think once you have done a workout, quotation mark, whatever that may be, the 20-minute walk, and you actually feel good, to actually stop, celebrate, and actually say, hey, just experience that feeling. Allow yourself to feel good. How does that feel? You like it? And I think that's so important for me. Nowadays, after workouts, I stop. And nowadays I work out pretty much every day. So I'm actually looking forward to that moment of, okay, A, you've worked out today. B, you're actually feeling good. Just hold that feeling for a moment. And it's beautiful. It's an amazing, amazing thing. Wow.
You just said something that is actually one of the biggest pillars of my coaching programs, and that is tracking that emotional feeling
Yeah.
after we've completed a workout. And I use what's called the piggy bank of emotion with a lot of my clients. And so the more intentional we are
Yeah.
about what you were just describing after that workout, well,
Yeah.
guess what? That next day, when we may have a little resistance in showing up to the gym again or going and doing the exercise again, what we do is we go back into that piggy bank from yesterday,
Yeah.
and we really tap into that emotional feeling that we felt after that day of working out. And we can use that
Yeah.
as the future response.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And indeed, you just never know where these things lead you to. You don't know what your strengths are, and over the seasons of your life, abilities and just general things change. In the past, swimming, yeah, okay. Nowadays, I love swimming, and sort of my lengths are increasing. And last week I did a 4K swim, and I thought, okay, that's actually not bad. So and suddenly there was this kind of, did I do that? Okay, not bad for an old man, kind of thing. And you sort of realize, okay, hang on. So maybe all your conceptions of what you should do or could do are actually all a heap of bullshit. Because unless you actually explore and have some fun and have some joy and actually, yeah, just see how you can push things in a safe manner, um, is actually beautiful. Having said that, so many of us are deconditioned. If you look at the United States, you have got 50% more obesity and morbid obesity. That comes with a sedentary lifestyle. That comes with a poor diet where inflammation is rampant within the body. These are all linked together, and now you've got this 40-year-old, 50-year-old client who says, "Oh yeah, I was a wrestler. I was strong when I was 21. Let me show you." Yeah, how do you deal with that?
That can be difficult because a lot of ego is involved with people, right? Even myself, we all have ego. But one thing remains consistent, and that is congruency. Congruency is a very, very powerful thing. When you are who you say you are, people see that. When you aren't, people see that too.
Uh,
And so when somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I need to lose 10 pounds or get 10 pounds of muscle, and they were maybe a college football player and now they're 45 years old or 55 years old, and yet they are 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight, and they come in to talk to me and they have all of the answers. So what it seems, well, there's a reason they're talking to me. And so we have to rein it in and understand,
uh,
okay, what has gotten you to this point? Clearly, there's a gap between your knowledge of what you used to be and who you are currently now. What my
Beautiful.
job is to bridge that gap with you as your coach and understand where there can be gaps within that and allow us to unravel those things and not distract us from the ego, because it's a very, very hard thing to do. It happens to me every single day, right, in different aspects. But as long as we can be vulnerable with each other, that allows us to put down the ego for a second and just understand, okay, what are my current habits, rituals, and routines that have led me to this point to talking to you? And how
Nice.
can we get back on track with those things that may used to lie within us? Because that is exactly what brought me back into alignment within my mind and my body. Like I said, I was straying off path, but once I stepped back into the gym, I understood that those seeds still lied within myself, that seed of confidence, of movement, and all of these things, right? And so if I can just help other people water those seeds within themselves, naturally we can pull those flowers out, is what I like to say.
Nice, nice. John, you're an amazing man. You have got some beautiful insights there, and you had some wonderful answers to all of my questions, where I have to say, okay, that's how he thinks. And often enough, like for the two of us, we have been around these concepts for a lot of time, but it's a matter of how do you phrase them? And suddenly there is an aha moment there when you think, oh, that was beautifully said. And there was this ping happening in my life where I thought today, okay. So, and I think that is the beautiful thing, to actually let that happen. And I think that is where a coach comes in and guides you and asks the right questions, listens to what you say and what you don't say. I think there is a lot of that in your coaching style. I absolutely love it. Well done, man. So if there are people out there who think, wow, John, he has got his shit together, how can they find you? Where are you on the internet as well as in physical reality?
Yes, of course. So I'm primarily posting on Instagram at only John Daniel, and I'm also very committed to the platform of LinkedIn. So you can find me, John Daniel, on LinkedIn as well. And there you will find, for one, my story that I've kind of gone into a little bit of detail here, but for two, you'll find some of these concepts that I dive a little bit deeper into and understand how you guys can cultivate this growth mindset and start to apply these things to your life to ultimately become the best versions of yourself.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast, because all of John's links are down there. And please, it is said that if you surround yourself with 6 millionaires, it's very difficult for you to not become financially wealthy. If you surround yourself with 6 painters, sooner or later you pick up a brush, you pick up a pencil, and you'll start your creative side coming out. Can you imagine you do that now with a coach who guides you with your life? And I think this is such a huge opportunity that so many of us are missing. So, John, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you very much for being out there, being so honest, humble, authentic. And it is, I think, this is one of your strengths, this authenticity. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. So there is something to be said about that. So no, John, thank you very much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you so much for the platform.
No trouble at all. And you guys look after yourself and live with passion, okay? Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.